Hello, this is Invitation to a Conversation. I'm excited this morning because my guest is an author, a retired educator, a genealogist, a textile artist, and a storyteller whose work is dedicated to preserving family history and giving voice to those whose stories might otherwise be forgotten. And now I introduce to you Miss Barbara Brown Gathers. Good morning, Miss Gathers. How you
Good
doing?
morning. Good morning. I'm doing wonderful. Thank you. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm honored to have you on this morning. I love reading, and one of the positive the advantage of reading is I love to see the books that I read come to the screen, but then to meet the author, that's even more special.
Oh, it's my
Thank you.
pleasure. And thank you so much for finding the secrets of Hattie Brown, reading it, and then making the effort to find me.
Yes, and thank you for accepting my invitation to a conversation. Yes. So, Miss Gathers, first introduce yourself and let everybody know who you are and where you're from.
My name is Barbara Brown Gathers. I'm a Brooklyn, New York girl. The bone. uh, Now I live in Georgia, in the suburbs of Atlanta, and initially, in terms of who I am, I wouldn't be without my parents. So I would start with them. My father and mother both were from North Carolina, and they came to Brooklyn, New York as children, and they were part of a movement called sometimes the Great Migration. My my dad came to Brooklyn in like 1935, and my mom was like 1930. She came 1929. She came to Brooklyn. So even though they were born in North Carolina, they pretty much grew up and spent their lives in Brooklyn, New York. So on the back side, on the behind me side, that's who I am. And going forward, I am a mom. I have a son, and I have three granddaughters. So
Oh, okay,
basically,
okay.
the whole definition of who and what I am and why I do what I do.
Thank you for that. Thank you. And as this conversation is totally about, this is her first novel, The Secrets of Hattie Brown. If you haven't read it, read it. And if you're not a reader, let this be the first novel that you read. So, Miss Brown, even though you are author and I read the other talent and skills you have, what before you did any of those, what were your first career choices that you thought of coming out of high school out the front door?
Well, the earliest memory I have of what I wanted to do when I grow up was I remember in the sixth grade, I said I either wanted to be a teacher or a psychologist. And then I went to junior high school and I was in the gifted program, which they call the SP program. And because of that, I was put into an orchestra class where I played violin. And then there is a very special school in New York City called it's called LaGuardia High School of the Music and the Arts. At that time, it was called Music and Art High School, and students from all over the city could audition to attend that high school. But it was a very competitive audition. It wasn't easy to get in. So I auditioned. My teacher, my violin teacher, encouraged me to audition. I auditioned and I got in. So when I got in, after about a month or two, even though I loved playing violin and I was having a good time, I always wanted to. I also sang. I sang in the church choir and I loved singing. My mother sang. I wanted to really study voice. So I asked the teacher, the violin teacher, could I switch? Because you had the option in that school to major in an instrument, vocal music, um, graphic arts, or yeah, I think that was it. Instrument, art, or voice, in which a voice is an instrument. And so they gave me permission, and I switched over to voice. And so first, I thought when I graduated, I wanted to go to a music college. And I did audition for Manhattan School of Music. I didn't get in. And so then I decided, well, you know what? I also wanted to teach, and you can teach anything through music. So I went to Long Island University and I majored in education with a minor in music.
Okay, okay. So let's go now to your talents and skills prior to discussing your novel. Explain each one, starting with a retired educator. Tell us about what you did as an educator.
I was a teacher in the New York City Department of Education for over 30 years. My specialty was gifted kids, and as the year, at one point I was teaching what they call a self-contained classroom, which means I taught all subjects. Then
Mm,
eventually I became the social studies teacher for the school for that grade. I think I was teaching the fifth and sixth graders. And then in the last iteration of my career, I became the principal, saw that I was talented artistically. So first she made me the tech teacher.
the what teacher?
The principal, the technology teacher. So
Okay,
I
okay,
taught computers for
okay. You
a
said
couple of
tech
years.
teacher.
Tech,
Mhm.
yeah. So I taught computers for a couple of years, and then I was instrumental in helping the school to set up an arts education program. So the principal made me the director of the arts education program as well as the art teacher, which was another, like, I never took a formal art class. It was always
Right.
music, but she made me the art teacher. And I had some art experience, but mine was in ceramics because I did do
Mm,
clay art for over 20 years. I have a lot of work, a body of work there, but not painting and drawing and that kind of. But hey, she gave me the job. So I delved in, and then that's what I did for about 5 or 6 years, the last 5 or 6 years of my career. So most of my career was New York City. There was a piece there where I moved to Florida, and I was teaching in Florida from like 2005 to 2008. And that was very interesting and different experience for me because Central Florida, different population from New
yes.
York City.
That's what I was going to ask you. How different was it going from
Very
New
different.
York to Florida? Was it the same grade
No,
that you taught?
no, they were younger. I taught fourth graders there. And then I went into the down there, even though when I went down there, I'd already been teaching gifted kids for over 15 years. But down there, they made me I had to get a certification.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to take about 5 courses. So while I was taking the courses, I was teaching regular fourth grade class. And then once I got the certification, I also became the gifted teacher down there. But even down there, gifted program is different from how
Mm-hmm.
in New York City. So
I'm sure it is. I'm
different
sure it is.
kids, different program, but the population, the kids just very different. And so I stayed down there a few years. Then I went back to New York and finished up my career.
Okay. And the next talent and skill is genealogist. Explain what that is.
A genealogist is someone who studies basically family history. And my son is quite the full grown adult now. But when he was a little guy, I realized that if I don't document the family history, he's not going to know these people that I grew up, my aunts and uncles and cousins, especially my aunts and uncles, because my father had 8 siblings. And for me, they were giants. They were great people. They were leaders. People look up to them, and they gave me a role model to look at. Nobody's perfect. Everybody's got their skeletons, but essentially
Yes.
they gave me something to grab onto that, okay, this is who I am too. So I wanted my son to have that, but I realized he's not going to know them like I know them, because he's just growing up now. He To him, they're just old people. So I felt like that, creating the legacy for him in combination with just trying to reconstruct the story, because the way it happened, which I guess we'll get into later when we talk about the book, it there were just so many question marks. So I wanted to fill in those blanks, and that made me start doing the research. But honestly, once I started, and when I started, there was no internet, there was no, everything was hands on. If I wanted a document, if I wanted a marriage license from North Carolina, I had to write to them and send a check and
Right.
wait for the hard copy to come in the mail. And if
Right.
I wanted to look at the censuses, I had to take a day off from work and go to the archives in Manhattan and sit there all day scrolling that big screen and watching the things go up. If I wanted even deeper information, a couple of times in the early 90s, I took time off, went to North Carolina and sat in the state library in Roxborough, and also, went to Roxborough and went to the courthouse, and so, everything was really hands on. This is a cakewalk now, where you just go to ancestry.com and click.
Yes.
So
But
that's how I got started with genealogy.
And I think that genealogy is so important because where we come from slavery to having the master's name, to our forefathers and aunts and uncles being shipped off to different plantations, having
Yeah.
different last names. So you never know who you might be dating or who you might be socializing with that could be a relative of yours. So I think genealogy is very important.
Yes, it is.
Um, and then you are a storyteller whose work is dedicated to preserving family history and giving voice to those whose stories might otherwise be forgotten. I think that's so important because, like we were just saying, if you didn't do that research, your son couldn't pass it on to his cousins, to his children, to his grandchildren.
Right.
We could be all walking around related to everybody. And your last thing is an author.
Well, one more thing is quilting.
Yeah, oh, quilting. Yes. Okay. Okay. Excuse me.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
But because the quilting for me, yes, I do make the bed quilts for people to sleep under and be warm and all that. And my mom was a quilter as well. But I sort of latched on to a few years ago making these portrait quilts, which I love because portrait quilts are also telling a story. And that basically, that's kind of like the quilts that I do. In fact, I
Oh,
just happen to
wow.
have this is
Okay. And that will come under textile artists, right?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I had,
because
okay.
it's not just quilts to sleep under, but it's what they call more of a fine art practice.
Do you have one near you?
Yes, I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna show you two real quick. This
Okay.
That one behind me, that's a quilt.
Ooh,
And
okay.
this was based on a photograph of a little boy holding his rooster. And the photographer's name is Richard Roberts. He died in 1936. The picture was taken somewhere around 1930. But what happened was his name was Richard Roberts, but I went to high school with Richard Roberts the third.
No.
He told we have a group of high school friends. We have a WhatsApp group and we talk. So Richard mentioned to us last year that his grandfather's photographs had been put into like a coffee table art book. And so I bought the book and I had it. I liked it. Beautiful photographs. I looked at it and put it on the coffee table. But recently I was looking for a photograph to start a new quilt and I came across this one and I decided to do it. And the genealogy comes in, or the history or the storytelling. It took like 4 months to make this quilt, but I wasn't happy. At first I named the quilt Rooster Boy. And then Richard, the grandson, told me that for a long time, this boy, they didn't know his name, but somewhere in the recent years, they did find out his name. So I asked Richard to find out for me. And when he gave me the name, I put my genealogy skills to work, and I found his name, his obituary, because
Mm.
he died in 2017 at 91 years old.
Oh,
So
wow.
on the back of that quilt, I have his story and his picture at 91. And so it becomes a full circle. And the quilt is now called Walter's Rooster because his name
Wow.
is
Okay.
so
Okay.
that's my most recent project. That's the one I just finished like last week. And this is my first quilt I'm going to show you, first portrait quilt, because when I finished The Secrets of Hattie Brown, for the first time in my life, I felt so connected to Hattie.
Mm.
And now the book is finished. So what are we going to do with this relationship? I wanted to keep that connection
Oh,
going. So I decided to try my hand at a portrait quilt because the kind of, I have several art skills, and I'm like, anything I look at, I could just do it. But no, portrait
right.
quilting is a whole nother piece of cake. But anyway, I got into it. I had to end up taking classes and getting help from a mentor. But this is the quilt.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And it was
Okay.
based on like we only have one or two pictures of Hattie because of
Yes.
the fire that happened after she died. So
Yes.
there's a picture of this quilt in the back of the book, but not in color. So
Right. Right.
that's
Right.
Hattie Brown.
Okay. And so okay, so how do you get your do you have exhibits on your quilts?
Actually, last year, two of my quilts were on exhibit in the Atlanta Quilt Festival.
Mm.
This year, the Atlanta Quilt Festival is from July to September. So this year, I have two more quilts that are going to be in the festival, and Hattie Brown quilt is one of them. The other one is a quilt of Marvin Gaye, What's Going On. So those two, I have to deliver them next week, I think, to the ladies. So they'll be
Ooh,
exhibit.
I would love to see that one of Marvin Gaye. Let me know about that.
Okay.
Okay.
Hmm.
And finally, your talent and skills as an author.
Yeah.
When did you decide that you wanted to be an author, or did you want to write a novel first? How did that all come about?
Well, I've been writing for a long time. It started out as a young woman. Writing was a comfort to me. Like sometime when I was feeling out of sorts, I would just write and poetry, and the and I found that the poems would usually be like a message that was healing for me. However, when I would reread it afterward, I would say, oh, somebody else could benefit from this too. So
Mm.
I started, that way. I have a, lots and lots of poems that I've written over the last probably 40, 50 years. And then I used to do short stories. And of course, as a teacher, did a lot of writing with my students and teaching creative writing with my students. So that's how that came to be. The novel piece came because I really wanted to piece together the story of Hattie Brown and the family, and I knew that I couldn't do it while I was working, because as a teacher I was always working at least two jobs. you know
Yes.
so there was no time for that, and so as soon as I retired, I started work on the novel. While I
Hmm.
was working on the novel, I was also taking care of my mom because at that point she was not well.
Okay. And tell us a short synopsis of the process of writing the book to completion. Did you already have the stories already pre-written, or were they flowing while you were writing? What was your concept? How did you get the words into the novel? What was your whole process of writing the book to completion?
I would have to say that, first of all, just to clarify, when I started writing the novel, I had already been doing the research for over 25 years. So
Hmm.
I have binders and binders full of, because like I said, there was no internet, so everything was hard copy.
Yes.
I was putting them in sheet protectors and putting them in binders. So I have a set of the funeral programs of everybody in the family who died from say 1960 coming forward. And everyone is in a sheet protector and it's separated by which of the nine children they were in, because we have nine lines. Uh,
Hmm.
and then so I have all the funeral programs. I have birth certificates where they were available, because in the early years in North Carolina it wasn't so much birth certificates, but I had marriage licenses, death certificates, census records. All of that was there. So for me, it was like using the documents to create the skeleton, because I wanted the story to be as factual as possible, but I knew that I had to use my big imagination to fill in the blanks. So,
Yes.
so that was how I got started.
Wow. So your siblings and your family members, how many people were associated with the book, and how did they feel about you writing a novel about the family? Are they private? Are they open to the public knowing about their story?
Oh, they were excited about it. In 1992, I had a meeting at my house of the women in the family. So one of my uncles had passed away, and by 1992, there were people in the family who had moved to other states and moved far away, but everybody was in town for the funeral. So I thought this would be a great time for us to get together as women and just talk about what's going on with us. So 1992 was the first women's meeting at my house. And I'm happy to tell you that we still have the women's meeting. In fact, there's one tomorrow on Zoom. And so um, the women's meeting was, at first it was hit and miss. Like, then maybe in a couple of years, then we started doing it once a year. We would set the date the year before, and we'd have an in-person meeting somewhere in New York. And then when COVID hit, I already had my ticket, my airline ticket to fly to New York for the women's meeting. And, at that time, you could not do anything. We had to cancel, get my money back. And so by that time, the technology for Zoom was available. And the women in the family said, well, we don't want to, we were concerned about each other. And now we're living in LA, Dallas, Atlanta,
Yeah.
and so we said, until while this is going on, we need to lay eyes on one another.
Mm.
We started having the Zoom once a month. And that was, when was COVID? 2020?
2020 to 2022.
So
Mm-hmm.
since 2020, we've been doing the women's, now it's called the women's chat, um, every month, the fourth Sunday.
Oh, okay.
And the meetings are like 3 hours long. And so during that time, the book had come out also, while at the beginning of the era of the zooming. And so we literally shared that online. We would get on and talk about the story. uh Folks would share how proud they were, how happy they were. One of my cousins called me when she finished it and said, I knew she was going to have to die, but why'd you have to kill her so fast?
Oh, yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
the family was, excited, very happy. And since then, I'm not going to claim inspiration, but I can just tell you that there's few of the younger women in the family have also written books since then. So we have other authors in the family.
Okay. Are the other authors writing off of some of the stories from during the era of Hattie Brown, or
No,
they're in a different direction? Yeah, they're in a different
or
direction.
they're more based on their own personal experiences, and some of them are fictional, but it's still based on their personal experiences. Um,
Okay.
there's a lot of the women in the family very talented.
Okay. I'm sure they are. I have no doubt about that. Let's get into the novel, The Secret of Hattie Brown. First of all, let's start off because you're the granddaughter to Hattie Brown.
Mhm.
So let's set up. So before we get into that, what was your mission and goal for the book?
Well, the personal mission was, like I said, to piece together. You could think of the story that I had, meaning all that 25 years documentation was sort of like a tattered cloth. And I wanted to turn it into a beautiful, completed piece of fabric.
Quilt.
Okay. Yes. And in order to do that, I needed to sort of like, I think, in fact, what I did when I started was plot all the data facts in a timeline kind of setup, the stuff that I definitely know. And
Hmm.
so part of it was to create, to solidify that story into something, being very honest about the fact that it is historical fiction, because
Hmm.
I don't know certain things, and I had no way of making even an intelligent guess, educated guess.
Hmm.
Some
Hmm.
based on history, you can make an intelligent guess. But for example, what did Hattie say to my uncle on Christmas morning? I had to make that up because
Right,
they
right,
didn't tell me that. So,
right.
so that was part of the mission, also to just bring joy to
Hmm.
family. The way she died, it was so tragic and it was such a loss for the family. So I'm talking about, the elders, the uncles and aunts. I wanted them to have something that they could grasp onto, although by that time many of them were already gone.
Mm.
And then the mission, then that's, I said, that's the personal. And then sort of like the less personal was just to show people how you can take family stories and weave them into something that's meaningful for you and for the people you love. And it's also therapeutic.
Yes,
It's
yes,
very cathartic.
yes,
Mhm.
yes. How did you come up with the title?
Well, I thought about that, and to answer that question, I thought I would just read a little piece from the prologue.
Okay.
It says, I got secrets. Most folks keep secrets because they don't want anyone to know. Mine are secrets because I died before I could tell.
Mm,
I would have told if I could have, but life swooped out of me before I could shape my thoughts and tell my stories to my children. My
mm,
stories are my secrets, but they never got told because I died. 4 days sick with the pneumonia, and then I was gone at 39 years old. A lot of people died like that in those days. Then, weeks after my death, the house burned down, and any fibers that could have been woven together to reveal my stories got destroyed. My tragically motherless and homeless 9 children then had to see their papa buried the following year. That
mm.
is how my stories became secrets that just never got told.
Oh, I love it. 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 And
So for
so,
me, as her granddaughter, it was secrets because I did also the piece that's not here is
right.
um what I didn't really understand until actually very recently thinking about it is that whole experience was so traumatic for them that
Mm-hmm.
they didn't talk about it, not to us kids.
Mm-hmm.
They just
Sure.
they just did their thing. They migrated, and you know how us folks do. We say, "Well, I know that happened, but I got to make forward. I got to go for."
Yes.
They came up to New York and made life, and us kids never really knew what their struggles had been until we were old enough to kind of figure it out.
Yeah. Yes. So, my next question is, the secrets of Hattie Brown spans from 1870 to 1932, from North Carolina to Virginia, which was 62 years. Which, with such a wide span of years in the story, why and how did you choose this part of the family story to tell?
Well, because that's for me, that's where the most mystery was. Actually, even if you count when Eliza was born, it goes from 1860,
Mm-hmm.
because she was born in 1860. She was born 5 years before enslavement ended.
Yes.
So this is a period of time I've spent a lot of time studying and teaching. I was spending
Mm-hmm.
my students. I have students who in my class in the 1980s and 90s and 2000s who still reach out to me now on Facebook thanking me for the lessons that they got around that same time period, that same era in our history, because they said after they left my middle school class, nobody ever taught them that stuff again.
Mm-hmm.
And
Of course.
so, I have a love for that stage of our history and a curiosity about what really went on. Because when I was in school, I went to all New York City public schools, and the notion was that my history started with enslavement. And then when I started to study, and I even traveled to Egypt and studied ancient Egypt and our history from back there, and I actually lived in Ghana, West Africa for a year teaching. So I was learning, no, that's not, no, that ain't the truth. That's not how it happened. So that's why The Secrets of Hattie Brown has a companion coloring book, because I thought about the fact that also we don't, mentally, we don't have images. Those years you named, we don't really have visuals of what was going on there, except seeing us in chains. If those who look into it might see something about lynching, seeing us in the movies shuffling and grinning. But in terms of what was our lives really like at that time,
Mm-hmm.
we
Mm-hmm.
don't have those images in our mind.
We
So
don't.
the book has pictures of those different, like this is a picture, just how do we look in church?
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
this is what it looked like when we was packing up for the Middle Passage, the Great Migration.
Yes.
The suitcases, they had their suitcases at the bus station.
Yes.
Some people went by bus, some people went by car.
Yes.
See, they at
And
the bus
some
station.
went by train.
That's
Yes.
right. So the artist who did this work is named Audrey Selah Adenike Jeter Allen, and she's my very good friend, close sister, who also went to Music and Art High School, and she lives here in Augusta. So
Okay.
I told her what my vision was, and she came up with the drawings, and then I wrote the stuff in the back that explains some of the symbolism as well in the drawing. So all of that was part of what we were going for.
I need one of those coloring books.
Everything is available on Amazon, including the audio book, which I narrated myself.
Okay, excellent. So, Miss Gathers, so we're getting into the secret of Hattie Brown, and and you're going to give us a synopsis of the book. But before we start, I want you to name the 9 children of Elsa and what number Hattie comes in, because you're the granddaughter to Hattie. And oh, Hattie has such a life. I tell you, she has such a life. She has such a life. So let's start. The Secrets of Hattie Brown.
Well, Hattie was my grandmother. She was my father's mother.
Mm-hmm.
So she had 9 children. And the dedication to the book reads, because that gives you all those names. Growing up in this family, I was in awe of the fact that these people, my father, aunts, and uncles, had lost everything at a moment in their lives: mother, father, home. Still, they managed to put the pieces back together and provide a life of comfort and security for my brother, my cousins, and me. This book is dedicated to all of them, the Browns: Bessie, Ernest, Florida, Robert Jr., Lander, Virginia, Bertie, Azel RD, that's my dad, and Rivers.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. And Hattie was your grandmother. I tell you, that book was so good. I couldn't put it down. I read a lot of books, but then some books keep you up until you want to get to the end.
Thank you.
Okay.
And that's what anybody who has gotten back to me, so many people come and say, I couldn't put it down. It's kept me up till I finished it. I had to just finish it.
Yes.
Mhm.
So give a synopsis of what the book is about.
Well, like you said, the book covers from basically 5 years before the end of enslavement, emancipation, which was 1860,
Mm-hmm.
to 1932
Two.
ish,
Mm-hmm.
and that's from, in other words, from the time Eliza Cowan was born, that's Hattie's mother, my great grandmother, until Hattie and Robert passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And so it it's another it's my family's story, but it also covers a time that I think is very important in the history of our people, meaning African Americans, because enslavement was our Holocaust. And then the recovery from it,
Mm-hmm.
the coming back from that, it was such a horrible thing that was really designed to destroy us,
Mm-hmm.
especially when it got to the point where we were of no more use because the purpose that we were brought here for was now defunct.
That's right. That's right.
um, so it takes us, the book is really taking us through that time period, and what did it look like, what were our struggles, what were our joys, what were our challenges, what were our triumphs. And for me, it's a story of a family, like I said, that lost, when I think about it, when I look at now where I am, where my son is, my one of my oldest granddaughter just graduated from undergraduate school, and I'm looking at that and I'm saying the distance that we've traveled as a family that was doomed for destruction and to be just flat out gone.
Mm-hmm.
So many different things, and it's our story, but every family has their own version of that.
Yes.
Why I think it's important because there's a strength in that. There's
Mm-hmm.
a strength in seeing that somebody whose blood is running in your veins survived one of the most horrible things that could happen to a people, and brought it to the point where you are. I used to tell my students, I this is a sidebar. I would do an exercise when I was teaching the middle passage. I would make them get under the desk because in New York we had those desks, single desks with the four legs. Get
Yes.
under the desk, pull their knees up to their chest, tuck their head in, and they had to stay like that without talking for 60 seconds. I would time them. And then I would tell them, okay, you could get up. And I would ask them, well, what was that experience like? Oh, my legs was hurting. I couldn't breathe.
Right.
That was boring. I said, well, your ancestors stayed like that for months in the hold of a ship.
Yes.
Sometimes laying in their own feces and urine, not getting much food to eat, having people kick them and whip them and treat them like they weren't human. But guess what? They survived it. So, because if they didn't survive it, you wouldn't be here.
Or laying or sitting like that next to dead bodies,
That's right.
dare to say they
Exactly.
died. And so when I was reading the book, I got that it was about the psychological condition of our people
Yeah.
5 years out of slavery.
Yes.
Are they think, because you hear people say nowadays we might be free physically, but some of us are not free mentally. So the story, to me, was based upon how psychologically they stepped out from slavery and tried to live a life from the condition of slavery,
Yes.
and how they were going to balance, to be for the man, how was he going to balance being a provider and
Yes.
find a decent job without being called those names?
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And how the women had to find compassion and strength to
Right.
hold the words that came out of their husband's mouth,
Yes.
because it tore them apart, because their struggle was having children and trying to fix a home so he won't be burdened because of the working conditions to a black man
Right.
during those times.
Right.
So that's what I got out of the story.
Yes.
And because one of the husbands, I think it was Hattie's husband, when she had a disabled child and the husband walked out, after they had that. So how did that make her feel? He's worrying about his reputation of giving birth to a handicapped child, and he can't handle that,
Right,
so he walks away.
right.
So I thought that book was a very good basis of psychological endurance, and we still live that nowadays, even though it's years and years from slavery. Look at the environment we're living in now, that we have to deal with the government, and so they're trying to put us back into that thing. So how are we dealing with that psychologically?
That's right. And that young man was named Willie, and
Yes.
they called him Frog Boy because he had no leg. His legs were real
No
short,
legs or no arms.
and he actually, I have a picture of him. That was my grandmother's brother, and I have a cousin who lives in Dallas right now who knew him as she was a kid. So she
No.
about Willie. So there's a
Yeah.
couple of stories in there about Willie that are true because my cousin told me these things
Hmm.
with Willie.
Yes, yes. So, tell me, as is there anything else you want the viewers to know to get them excited, to get the book or to reread it if they already have read it, since they're hearing your voice about the story?
Well, there is a section that's kind of one of my favorites that I like to read aloud to folks because this was, Eliza, who was Hattie's mom, she
Yes,
was a midwife.
yes.
And we have actually the same cousin who lives in Dallas. Her mom had preserved for us some letters that were written by Hattie from 1921 to 23 to Eliza, and also a booklet where Eliza recorded the births of the children that she delivered.
Wow.
Have that. In fact, next month, my the women in my family, we've rented a house in Virginia Beach, and we're going to have Virginia Beach
Next month?
next month, and we're going to have a retreat. And so I've done a book for the retreat that has Hattie's letters in it and the some of the information about Eliza. Also, I wanted to show you, I'm trying to stick all this stuff in, a picture of Eliza, which I don't think that's um in the book. That was Eliza,
Mm-hmm.
born
Mm-hmm.
in 1860, and she died
Mm-hmm.
in 1921.
And at that time, midwives, once again, they're coming popular again. But
Yeah,
midwives was one of the major
yeah,
occupation
yes,
for Black women.
right.
And Eliza taught her daughters early because they
Yeah,
assisted her
that's right.
in the into the births, handed her the amenities she needs for the woman to be feeling comfortable and safe through each birth. So, and then Hattie taught her daughters that. So that was an ongoing
Yes,
occupation.
it was. So the piece I like to share is that when Eliza, she had a few different men in her life, but there was one who, and like I said, some of this stuff I had to fill in because I didn't know. But
Right.
Alex Cowan, which is
Yes.
her name, Alex, I think of him as the love of her life because
Yes.
of her children. He was in, and this is from from my research on her daughter and her son that has marriage license. His name,
Yes.
Alex Cowan, is on their marriage license. I have those documents. So
Okay.
I know that Alex was real and Alex was the man for her. And so
Yes.
he has a main part. But this part I want to read is when they were young, and they went out on a date for the first time. And
Mm-hmm.
she didn't know nothing about that kind of life.
That's right.
Was a little older and he was a man of the world. So
Yes.
I like to share this little part here.
Okay.
Um, one Sunday night, as he was leaving, he said, Next weekend when I come, I want to take you out somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Just me and you.
Mm-hmm.
Eliza smiled, showing all her teeth. Where to, Alex? Don't worry, just pretty up yourself, he replied, smiling. The week went by in a flash. Eliza hardly slept. She was so excited. He took her to the local music club, which was the precursor to what would later be called a juke joint. She didn't know anything about this type of social environment, being just a simple, hardworking church girl. But apparently, Alex had sown some oats,
Mm-hmm.
very wild ones. He had been around. Truth be told, it was your brother Nelson who told me about this place that day we met, he said.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Eliza knew Nelson used to go out sometime at night, but clearly he didn't tell her everything. The social club in Black Walnut was in a house owned by an African American family. Folks could stop by to hear local musicians play music, get some food to eat, drink some bootleg whiskey, and then, if needed, even get a room upstairs for the night. It was often the only option for Black folks who were traveling long distances since they were not permitted to stay at the inns owned by whites. The music was like nothing Eliza had ever heard. The lyrics to the songs were very suggestive and very frank. They spoke about things that concern grown folks: love, heartbreak, money, racism, and poverty. They sat and listened for a while. Eliza was in awe. Then, want to dance? Alex held his hand out. Me? I don't know how to dance. She was in a panic. She knew everything about birthing babies, making biscuits, or feeding chickens, but dancing? Eliza was afraid of embarrassing herself. Come on, baby. Just listen to the music and follow me. Alex was so convincing and so smooth. He always made her feel like she could do no wrong. Okay. She took his hand and followed him onto the crowded dance floor. The singer's voice wrapped itself around the guitar's blues chords like a serpent squeezing its prey. Come on, little mama, rock me all night long. Come on, little mama, rock me all night long. Give me some of that honey. Come on, little mama, come on. The tempo was moderate, allowing fluid movement of their bodies, swaying in sync. Alex held her close. She felt like oil that had been poured all over his body as she easily followed his movements. The lyrics, coupled with his feet, his legs, the arching of his back, all so hypnotic. Eliza felt like she had somehow forfeited possession of her own physique. Come on, little mama, shake your hips and swirl. Come on, little mama, come on, rock my world. Let my train run through your tunnel. Ooh, baby, I know you my girl. Alex was so worldly, and Eliza was very inexperienced.
Mm-hmm.
She was astute and a pretty good judge of character, but matters of the heart, a whole different category. She could not think logically. Her whole sense of self was being dominated by what she was feeling at this moment.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Alex was the love of her life.
Yeah,
And whenever he came back,
everybody else had to go.
yes, 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 yes. That you know what, that innocence sometimes is so sweet,
Yeah,
but it teaches you lessons,
yeah,
that you've never been before. But you do something different for someone you love or you think, you know what I'm saying?
yes,
Especially that first love. Yes. One of my favorite quotes, and I would like for you to explain it, is on page 243. And it seems like all of my favorite ones are the last paragraph on each one of these pages. 2:43. It says, are you there yet?
Yes.
It says, I have prayed and asked the Lord, what is my mission? Why did he save me and my family from dying on that horrible day? The Lord has given me the task of going around and sharing this story with those of you who do not know it. The Lord told me to encourage you and to tell you that weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. Yes, the Lord has sustained us and protected us and covered us with his mighty long arms. From slavery today, he has kept us as a people and continued to bless us. I am here today to tell you that there is a God. His son is Jesus who died for us, and the Lord will never forget about us. I tell you, I like that because once again, it reiterates why we need God in our life for all the struggles they heard about,
Mhm.
all the struggles they seen, and all the secrets that Hattie had, but all their trials and tribulations. That's all we had in slavery was the Lord, was prayers. From Harriet Tubman for everything we did in life to where we got through now, which we
Mhm.
still have to do. So, what were you thinking about when you wrote this part of this story?
Well, two things. Um, and I'm just thinking about it now that as you read it, um, the the song weeping endure for a night, but joy
Yes.
cometh in the morning. That was a song they sang. Two of my uncles, two of Hattie's sons, were bishops, and I was as a child. I went to the church of the oldest one, Uncle Ernest, and that was a song that was sung in the church, and that was something he often said in his sermons. And now, as I'm listening, I'm saying, "Oh, actually, he knew about that."
Yeah. Exactly.
So the other
Exactly.
reason that this even this whole section, this whole chapter is
Hmm.
because while I was doing the historical research for the book, not the not the family stuff,
Okay.
but just the general what was going on in the time and in the place, I stumbled upon what happened in Wilmington in 1899, and I'd never had heard about that. So that was just a horrible thing where they ran through the town killing people and all because of the results of an election that the white people didn't like.
Yes.
So I thought this has to be in the book. It has to be in the book also to set the pace and the tempo for actually what time Robert and Hattie were actually sitting in with their children.
Yes.
And so that's why I created this scene where this minister as a guest came from Wilmington and told the story to the people in Hattie and Robert's church.
Okay.
And so that's why this whole section and the names and the dates and things are accurate or historically accurate here. And,
Okay.
a little sidebar about the in the book, in the narration of the audio book, this is the only piece at the first part, his whole sermon, that I did not narrate. Instead, I had my cousin narrate it because in our family we have ministers, starting with Hattie's husband, Robert, my grandfather, my great grandfather, William, was a minister.
Mm-hmm.
William, we've never had a generation where there wasn't a minister in the family.
Okay.
So, one of my first cousins, Uncle Lander's son, Leonard, is a minister. He's also a bishop now. So I wanted him to read that part because I really wanted it to have Black minister swagger.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
want him to do that. So in the narration and the audio book, that piece is done by him. And actually, I had a recording engineer to record the novel, but that piece, my son did it. My son recorded it, and
Okay.
my son also wrote the theme music for the audio book.
Oh, wow. Okay. Very talented family. Praise God. My other favorite was page 244 at the last paragraph. It's in the middle of the paragraph. Are you there?
I'm here.
It says, teach your children to be independent. Make sure they learn how to read and write. You should have a classroom right here in the church. Teach them everything you know and then get people who know more than you to come and teach them. Your children should know that their world can be as big as they are willing to make it. There is no limit to what they can create if they are willing to work hard and be disciplined. We can't give up, beloved. And you know what? That part right there made me think about, was it Eliza who had uh, their sons get up early in the morning to do the gardening with the seeds and everything like that?
Yeah,
And
it was
was it
Elijah's brother, Nelson.
right? And
Mhm.
wasn't it Nelson and another brother? They were on their way to school. They were throwing the seeds out, and they didn't care nothing about it. And they took a bunch of seeds and threw them in one area because the mom said, "Where's the crop? It didn't grow." And they were like, "It's growing over here," you know. And that was a good life lessons for them, you
Yes,
know.
yes.
And what made you write that part? And independence. Let me tell you something. That's one of the things about me. Hattie and Eliza, taught their children independence,
Mhm,
how to grow, how to make some money when you don't have any, to make a hustle on the side, taught
mhm.
them how to cook and do all of those things. And so, was this something that actually happened, or was this part of what you filled in the blanks that you didn't know about?
Well, this was still part of that same sermon by the minister who came from Wilmington. So,
Okay.
so yes, I basically wrote this whole sermon myself, but the information that teaching, first of all, I'm trying to sit it in the historically, which is this space of we were just coming into literacy because
Hmm.
remember, and during enslavement, it was illegal to teach us to read and write.
Yes, and
And
you know
so,
why?
yeah, of
Yes,
course. So,
yes,
so now we're at early 1900s, and 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 we're a generation out of enslavement where people are really beginning to understand the significance of why we were denied the right
yes,
to read and write and the importance of becoming literate. So anybody who was anybody and had anybody's ear in that day and age was going to be telling people who, if they hadn't gotten the message yet, it's important. Teach your children how to read. Don't wait for public schools, open schools in the church, open it in your living room. But we got to teach these kids how to read and write if we're ever going to move up out of what we're going through. So
mm,
that's why that is there. But also, yes, the independent thing is a big deal in the Brown family. And so Hattie's 9 children, for the most part, there was, the important thing was spirituality, religion, and entrepreneurship. So
mm-hmm,
2 uncles who
mm-hmm.
were bishops, 1 aunt who was international missionary, and my dad and another uncle were businessmen. My father had his own business for over 25 years. He was the first Black exterminator in New York City.
That's right.
So
That's right.
that
That's
that
right.
business fed us. That wasn't a side hustle. That was he business, and he hired just about every man and some of the women in the family over the years of that business he employed. And
Wow.
so that's because of that. That's why I put that piece in where Hattie was making stuff to sell and all that, because
Right.
they must have seen that in the short time they had with her. They must have seen that entrepreneurial spirit in action. And that's
Hmm.
why they grew up with it. They brought it up to New York and they knew that's how they were going to survive and excel.
And it runs in your bloodline. Sometimes you don't have to live with your ancestors or your
That's true.
parents or grandparents to
Yeah.
have that gene or talent found in you. And because of time, my last one is on page 245, last paragraph, first section. It says, raise your children thoughtfully, brothers and sisters, they can't raise themselves. Raise your children to be independent, to be wise, to be children of Almighty God. If you have children, this is your divine appointment. Do this well, and when you close your eyes and you are a citizen of this earth no more, the Lord will embrace you and welcome you and say, "Well done, my child. Well done." Yes,
That I have very strong feelings about those words,
yes,
especially as an educator, because I taught hundreds and hundreds of children, and I talked to hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of parents. So I
yes,
saw all different versions of that. I saw children who were being parented, and I saw children who were not being parented. They were just raising themselves.
yes,
And I got to see what that looks like as those people move through the world.
yes, yes, yes.
So thank
I mean, and some people, they put a lot of pressure on the school system to do these things for us.
yeah, it's not their
Um,
responsibility.
No, it isn't. It all starts in the house.
That's right.
Yes, it does. So whether it Miss Gather says, whether in a classroom, through the pages of a novel, or with needle and thread, Barbara believes that every person has a story worth telling, and that preserving our history is one of the greatest gifts we can leave to future generations. What inspired that state? And I think that's awesome because we have so much lost history. You know, I I thought I was the most pro black person, but every day I learned something new that I didn't know, and it just adds on to what I do know, and it's so fulfilling. It's so loving. So, what was your thoughts when before you wrote this statement? What was going on before you wrote that piece that I just read?
Um, I think for me, it's mainly that it's so important for us to have some connection to where we come from and to know the truth of our stories. And what really lit the fire under me was the first time I traveled to Egypt, and I
Mm,
traveled with an educator who was, who was a black professor, and he taught us the Afrocentric history of ancient Egypt. And when he would take us to these monuments and things and show us stuff that that's not how they taught it to me. But now I'm
right.
seeing it carved in stone, and that's 2,000 years old. So am I going to believe the textbook that was written last year, or
Okay.
am I going to believe what I'm looking at in front of me? So that kind of lit a fire under me, and got me excited about teaching social studies, because up until that point, even as a kid in school, I thought those social studies was boring and had nothing to do with me.
I felt the same way. I feel the same way. And to know right now we're living in a space where they want to eliminate our history.
Right.
And so you telling these stories and passing them on and making them available, whether in Audible or in novel stands, gives a person a chance to read it or learn it what by choice. You have the book or you have the audio, and so I think it is up to us to
Yes,
tell our stories.
it is.
No other race needs to tell our story, not unless they lived within our race to know how it goes on.
And even if they lived within, they can't know the story unless
Right.
it's real, because we know what the story is, because it's been our experience and our parents and our grandparents, and it hasn't really changed all that much.
No, it hasn't.
We
No, it
thought
hasn't.
during the 60s and so forth, we thought, oh yeah, this is happening. We're doing something. And we did, we were, but I thought it was over pretty much.
Right.
And then we're on to something new that's challenging, but that stuff is gone. But no, now we're seeing it could easily at the snap of a finger be go open that closet door and bring that thing back out. Activate it.
What you it's
Right.
only in deactivation form right now.
That's
They're
right.
trying to activate it. Exactly. Powerful way to put it. Powerful way to put it. The Secrets of Hattie Brown, the remarkable family history that inspired it, and the enduring power of storytelling to connect us across generations. What a loving story. What a story of strength. What a story of endurance. What a story of encouragement. And you know what? Even though they didn't want us to learn how to read or write because that it would expand our mind, the jobs that we were doing, we were already creating how to do it better to
That's
make it more comfortable for us. So we needed that reading and writing. We got it when we were supposed to get it, but
that's
we didn't need it to be creative. We
that's
were born with those
that's right.
skills.
That's right.
So, Miss Gathers, what is next for you? You have so many talent and skills that you have already explored, lived, done, and battled, and put an end to it. So, what's next for you?
Well, like I said, the portrait quilts, I'm enjoying that right now. So I just finished this one, and maybe in a few weeks or something, I'll start another one. Who knows? I really go by what my spirit suggests. I have another novel that's in the works that I work on, and then I put it down a little bit, and then I work on it.
Is it a continuation of the Secrets of Hattie Brown, or is it
uh,
a different
no,
era?
it's not. I At first I thought of doing that. The challenge with a sequel to Secrets of Hattie Brown is that if it's a sequel, then the people who are the children of the ones I'd have to write about, they are still living. And you can't write a book that's just all Disney World.
Right, right.
You got to open them closets and tell some of the stuff,
Yes, yes,
including my own. I'm not sure
yes,
that I'm ready to put my parents' stuff out there like that just to make a story interesting.
yes,
And
yes,
so
yes.
that's the challenge. So I thought of doing it, another next, not a sequel, but a book about the next time period, but using fictitious characters. When in my mind, I really know who they are.
Right, right,
I
right,
thought
right.
about that because each era of our history is so fascinating to me, and to me, some of the biggest thing about each era of our history in this country is that we are still here because
Yes,
every
and one thing about the history of us is, I don't know if I said this earlier in our conversation, but the Great Migration took place from 1910 to 1970 for 60 years. Color Purple was 1910 to 1940, 30 years. And The Secrets of Hattie Brown, you said Hattie Brown's era was like 1870 and Eliza's was 1860. And but before that, just with Hattie Brown, it was 62 years. But look at the years that all of those things were intertwining
yeah,
at the same time.
right.
1970, I was born in 57. And so the Great Migration was going on. But as a child, you just don't know the invisible things that are going on. So for you to write this book to bring us up to date of what was going on and how we can mean it, quilted together
Yeah, and if you
as a
look at the
fabric.
dynamics of Mister in Color Purple
Yeah,
and my grandfather Robert Brown, some of the struggles that both men had, some of the attitudes that they both walked with, some of the
yeah,
challenges, same. It's the same.
yes,
It's
yes,
exactly that's
yes,
what's going on for us. And
yes.
as you said, based on that, that's what the women had to accommodate.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes, yes. And we didn't have a way out because they were the main providers. We were the housekeepers.
Yeah,
So where were they going? But I'm glad Bessie got away though.
she sure did.
You have to read the story to learn what we're talking about there. Okay. So, Miss Gathers, once again, thank you for accepting my invitation to a
Thank
conversation.
you so much for having
Um, I'm going to look forward to getting that coloring book.
me.
But I would like for you to sign it. And when you decide to do another book, call me and
Okay.
come on.
All right.
Okay, so I can read it and we can just discuss it again. So, my last question for you is, what advice or wisdom do you have for new writers and keeping track two parts for new writers, and then if they want to keep track of their family history.
Yeah, that's two separate
Yes.
issues. With the family history, I'm gonna say, especially now in the time period we're in, where is that you can just click on ancestry.com and do a lot of the document research. The important piece is to talk to your elders. Your elders are the library of your family history.
Yes. Yes.
In West Africa, in Senegal, I believe it is, they have a saying that says, when a, a old man dies, a library burns.
Oh, oh, oh.
So
I need to write that down. Wait a minute. When old men die, the library,
a library
a library burns
burns.
down. Ooh, that's so prophetic. Oh my
And
God.
I have to say that each one of my elders, particularly Uncle Landa, Aunt Virginia, and then also Uncle Ernest and Uncle Tot, as we called him, they were separate libraries for me, even though they went through the same experience and they were part of the same family. And sometimes I would have a conversation with Uncle Landa, and I would say, "Well, Aunt Virginia said such and such and so and so." He
What?
said, "Oh, Jen don't know. Jen don't know."
Yes.
So
Yes.
I was able to, because I was interested at such an early point, they were all still here. And I literally sat with them and took notes. And even with Uncle Landa, I had, as he described what the family home looked like, I was able to draw a floor plan. The house that burned down, I was able to draw a floor plan so we could see how that house was laid out. So the most important thing with the family history now is not so much the documentation, because you can do that. You just got to put in the time, but it's talking to your elders. A lot of times elders are underrated in terms of their wisdom,
Yes.
in terms of their knowledge, in terms of their experience,
Oh yes.
especially now that a lot of elders don't know how to do TikTok. You
Yes.
know,
But
so
but the thing about that is the people under the elders have to learn that just because they are elders and they're the ones coming up in the community, that does they a lot of them think that what the elders know has no connection to what they're doing, that what they want to do is totally different.
right.
You know what I'm saying? But it's the same, they just give them different names.
That's
They just give them
the
different
same
names.
human experiences.
Yes,
And
yes,
that's
because
what
we
the
all,
people benefit from the wisdom.
yes, we all have to experience love. We all have to experience grief. We all have to, experience heartfelt. You know what I'm saying?
And we all want to be seen.
Yes, yes, in different ways. Yes, and
So for
so,
writers, I would just say, if you have an idea, if you have something you feel like you want to share, just start writing,
mm,
because it's not so important when it's going to finish or when it's going to get out there, but that you put it down, even if nobody ever reads it except some great grandchild that finds it in 50 years. The story, it needs to get down, whether it's factual or fictional, it's still coming out of you. And like I said, my desire to write The Secrets of Hattie Brown, to write Hattie's story, was probably more than 20 years. My desire was more than 20 years old by the time I started the book, because I had to wait until I had the space and time in my life to do it.
to do it.
But it's something I always wanted to do. So meanwhile, I was doing what I could do, and that's acquiring data, getting
Mhm.
her marriage license, her death certificate, his death certificate, finding out things about the family that some of my uncles and aunts didn't even know. And now my uncle made me officially, I'm the family historian. So
Okay,
I
right.
provide all that documentation continuously for everybody. When we get together, I do like a Jeopardy contest and give out gifts for people who know the and
Right, right.
keep it
So,
going.
so when you tell the writers just write it down, it doesn't necessarily have to be in order that it's going to be in the
No,
book. Just write it down, and
no,
then once you start putting the book together, then you insert it
yes,
in the spec.
yeah.
Okay,
Keep a journal is the point.
okay,
And it's not just the facts, but it's your feelings and how you're responding to life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm.
we're going through some times right now that needs to be documented. These are some
Oh,
really, really
oh
other
yes.
kind of times.
Oh yes.
And it needs to be
Because
documented.
as long as they have a little window to push through their agenda, they're going to try it.
Right.
And you have to be awake enough to see it and notice it and recognize it.
I agree.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Miss Gathers. Have a beautiful retreat.
Thank you,
And
Pamela.
hold on in 2 seconds. I'm gonna end this conversation to the other side. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you to the invitation to a conversation community. Without you, I would not still be going on. July the 15th will be 6 years. I'm still
Wow,
learning.
congratulations.
Thank you. I'm still learning how to do this podcasting. So just stay with me.
Mm,
Right now, I'm in the process of looking for a social media person, but then still, I'm going to educate myself on
that's
it
right.
until I find that person.
That's
So, in
right.
the meantime, continue to have a beautiful day and be blessed.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Bless you.